Try me. What if I actually pursue faster than you? You know, let's just say something. I really don't mind. I got it really quickly. Madame Tussauds. Madame Tussauds Museum. Is that one or Tom Tussauds? Tussauds. I kind of forgot it. Is that one? Madame Tussauds Iroitonga. I know what wax. After being scratched and punched into Donald Trump's wax figure is removed from the Madame Tussauds. Do you even actually know where Madame Tussauds is? It's in New York and London. I've never actually visited there, but I actually dropped by the place. I mean, I actually know what was nearby the place. You know, in London and Berlin and New York, Madame Tussauds, wax figures are basically like carbon copy of celebrity figures that are actually being made of a beeswax or whatever type of it's really similar to taxidermy. But do you know what taxidermy means? Taxidermy is really like having, you know, dead animals are being fixated. They're actually preserved, right? Using a certain medical substance that would prevent the disfiguration as well as decomposition. But wax is really like a beeswax in the clay or in a substance that would actually be similar to sculpture, right? There was a life-size model of Donald Trump made of wax that has been placed inside the Madame Tussauds Museum is finally removed because so many haters are actually punch. You know, this wax figure already has experienced too many attacks on it. After being scratched and punched, somebody actually, you know, trying to scratch one's eye or trying to gouge it. The wax figure has been under attack for many years. After being scratched and punched, the Trump wax figure is finally removed. This is decision by the Madame Tussauds, but I believe this spelling is a correct. Madame Tussauds Museum. Madame Tussauds. Madame Tussauds Museum. If my understanding is correct, I've never actually been there. I've never paid the admission fees to get into there. But I know that much. I don't really need to. In case you actually have any, what the thing is, a beeswax, but they're not actually using beeswax. It's a more like clay type of wax, right? So, you know, the popular things would be the Beatles, you know, John Lennon, and the Yoko Ono. They're actually constantly being chased after because they're iconic figures. You know, these are really monumental statues made of wax, right? So life-size carbon copy and knockoffs of celebrities or icons are displaced in this museum, right? I don't really need to think. Fact-checking claims on migrants and the caravan group surge on the U.S.-Mexico border. In the U.S., you know, between the U.S. and Mexico border, the actual allegations, they've already actually gone through a certain fact-checking. We're fighting for the authenticity of the copies and documentations. Then these type of a tussle will grow, all right? If I ever paraphrase it. Yeah. actually don't know. I'm not really like, that's your argument that I wouldn't be really that serious with love. I'm really quite. I've never even heard of it in recent days. Staying as migrants. It's really easy. I don't mind. To me, it's really nothing. And don't try to actually say that. Today I actually listened to, Hessen Info inside the cafe where I can hear louder music going on. The only thing that I forgot was whether she was a 43 or 53. I kind of forgot that. But I remember this lady called Katja in a different program. She's a 31-year-old. She's from Düsseldorf, and she actually had a last vacation in France before the coronavirus. She was talking to the künstliche Intelligenz, the artificial intelligence. Yeah, I remember that. And Mia was a 43-year-old. After all, I kind of forgot it. But those key information were delivered to me only once, and I was actually I was able to listen to this louder music also. I never actually jack up the volume, ratchet up the volume to cancel out other noises. I didn't do that. Yes, do you know what NASA is? Yes, ma'am. National Aeronautics, National Aeronautics and Space Agency. Aeronautics and Space Agency. Not really association, right? No. National Aeronautics and Space Agency. 100% certain. Aeronautics. National Aeronautics and Space Agency. That's NASA. I remember that. 내가 시간 잊어버리면 그리고 OX 이런 거 본다고 모르는데 시네마 미국에 살지. 영화는 나도 어릴 때부터 했는데 사람도 내가 어릴 때부터 잊어버렸대요. How quickly I can do it. That's a great. tribal communities are set to receive the greater infusion of governmental financial aid. The financial aid that is actually being placed inside, this probably has something to do with the new Interior Secretary. Yeah, and probably Neil Jefferson, probably. But the thing is, it's true that Native Americans are really discriminated and mishandled, right? They're pushed in. Think about it. Do you remember this, disenfranchisement heavily discriminating the Native Americans? Because the tribal communities, they were actually basically living in a very remote area as a preserved region. Then, each person does not really have their own residential address. They all share one gigantic P.O. box, and it has been actually separated into slots. So, one person would actually would take up one P.O. box number. It's really like, the concept is really similar to living in a dormitory. I actually know so many people who attended Columbia College. If they ever actually stay in the dormitory, then they would actually have a P.O. box number. So if you really want to actually use the Amazon Prime and you wanted to purchase a textbook, the only way you can receive is use your P.O. box number to have it sent to the Columbia dormitory. In that way, you can actually claim your package without actually being mixed with other people's parcel and packages. Right? Because if you are actually living in a group, or if you share a place with hundreds of people, you need to actually have a specified number allocated to you to pick up your package without actually being lost. Right? But the problem is, the Indians, they actually live in this community, but they do not have any legal residential address per each person. Even if I actually live in this house, my house has no character and no designated address. The Republicans in South Dakota are very vicious about Native Americans, because they have a tendency to vote for Democrats, and this has been the case for many years. So they adopted a legislative law. It's a sort of gerrymandering. They made the progress very difficult for Native Americans to cast their ballots. They need to go through a multiple process to prove that they're actually, U.S. residents living in the United States, because their houses do not have a respective address. So they share the one dormitory type of a group system. So each person inside the tribal community would be given a one slot. It's really like a shoebox. And your number is like a 38174, like this. This would be given P.O. box number. But technically, you need to have your billing address to legitimize your legal residence in the United States. This is really the first ground that you need to have to be a valid voter according to the U.S. election law in many different states. And election laws are definitely different from state to state, because everything comes from the state constitution's power, unless there is a conflict with the federal law. This is a murky area for sure. But to put it simply, yeah, I'm not really an expert, but all I can say is, election laws are under the sovereign influence of the state government and the state constitution. But one thing for sure, in South Dakota, the P.O. box would gain no power to prove one's own residence in the community. So any native occupant inside the preserved area at the time was forced to go through multiple bureaucratic steps. It's very tough to overcome this type of red tape. So they need to literally have their document issued by the local government, and they need to bring this to the election office, or even actually their own election campaign office. Like, their local chapter of FEC, the Federal Election Commission, or they need to actually contact local authorities to have their own identity proven as a legal U.S. resident and citizen. The rest of it is really, I mean, it's a really tough message, but that's all I know. I wanted it from Gary Tuchman's report. But I really actually read the straight news from Mother John's. So it's a mixture of the written and printed media. Yeah, I remember that. Many years ago, South Dakotan Indians really complained about the system because it was modern days of gerrymandering. And that way, they can actually rob many Native Americans of voting rights. This is one part of voting suppression, indeed, because, if you're actually part of the tribal community, then you do not have your own zip code, and you do not have your billing address assigned to you legally, so you cannot actually have this, full address that proves your own legal residence in the United States as a legalized resident and occupant of a certain area. No, you can't. So one was actually asked to go through a round of a hurdle. It was like, going through hoops. So, eventually it's a very tough to actually obtain. The local chapter of the, election commission should actually obtain the copy issued by the local government to prove your status inside the tribal community, and the multiple contact was necessitated to authorize your status as a legal voter. This is a part of the voter registration. That was very tough to actually have yourself registered as a voter who could exercise your voting powers. This is the one typical form of voter suppression as far as I know. But I really remember that. But anyway, this is really great. They're actually set to receive a huge, financial aid coming from the Uncle Sam. There should be more of work to do to at least resolve this type of injustice committed by the federal government. Basically, they were actually pushed into a shabby land, right? And they were actually forced to operate somewhat lucrative, but like addictive drug type of business, which is a casino industry. Right? People would be ruined if they ever actually be drenched in this type of gambling. It's really kind of, I don't want to do it. North Korea threatens, Biden administration into taking the Balancing Act by actually trying to, North Korea threat literally forces and coerces and compels the Biden administration to take more of a hideous action